I've got a bunch of new things to share with you today. I have some repairs and alterations, a brand new cardigan, and make sure you watch to the end because I'm going to reveal what I made for the Precious Fabrics Challenge. Alright, let's just get to it. This is the Hey June handmade Evans blazer. I've forgotten when I made it, but I think it's been a few years. I noticed last winter that it had a couple of holes in the sleeves where the stitches had popped, and I just was too lazy to repair it at the time, so I threw it in a basket, and I don't think I've worn it this whole year. But I dug it out when I did my wardrobe switch over, and I just sewed up the holes that were in the sleeve seam, and now I can get it back into the rotation, and I'm really happy about that because although I don't wear blazers a lot, this one is made out of a Ponte knit and it's very comfortable, so I do tend to wear it a decent amount in the fall and winter season. So very quick and easy fix, and I probably should have done it before, but at least it's ready to go now. So the second fix that I made is another one that I've been putting off. This is the Take the Chance shirt dress from Pattern Emporium. I think I made it last year, and I did wear it a fair amount last winter. But when I was originally making the dress, I forgot that these sleeves were only 3/4 length. I thought that they were full length. And so when I was measuring the elastic, I actually made it fit my wrists instead of up on my arm where the sleeve would sit. So the elastic was always too tight on my arm and it was very uncomfortable. So I decided to fix it so it would be more comfortable to wear it this year. So I unpicked the sleeve hems, took out the elastic, replaced it with a longer elastic, and now the sleeve is nice and comfortable and loose on my arm. It's going to be way better to wear it. And I do just want to address something because whenever I do these makes videos and I explain the things that I don't necessarily like about the garment, because I try to be honest and give you the full experience of the mistakes that I made and the changes that I would do if I had it to do all over again, I always get comments in those videos of why don't you just go back and fix it? And there's two different reasons why I don't, and I just wanted to explain them for you right now. So in some cases, whenever I finish a garment and there's some things that I don't like about it, not everything is a deal breaker. Sometimes I'll make a shirt that's too long, and I don't like that it's too long, but it's also not that big of a deal to me. And some of those little nitpicky things are things that I will even forget about after I've worn it a few times. And so I do often want to give it just a little bit of time of wearing the garment to see if whatever those things were still bother me, and if they're actually worth fixing, or if it's something that I can just live with. The second reason why I might not fix something immediately, and that is the case here, where it's something that I know I did something wrong and I really do need to fix it, but I might not do it right away because truthfully, I'm sick of the garment. Because I don't have a lot of sewing time these days, and I tend to make muslins now for every single new pattern that I try, it takes me quite a long time to make something. Sometimes 3, 4, 5 weeks to make a garment if it's of any sort of moderate or above difficulty. It takes me a long time to make things is what I'm saying. So by the time I get to the end of the garment, I am so ready to move on to something else. And so like with this dress, when I knew that the elastic was too tight and I was going to have to replace it, I just didn't feel like it. I was sick of looking at this dress. I wanted to make something else. I knew that it would be something that I would come back to eventually, as I just proved to you that I did. And so I'm not necessarily worried about fixing whatever it is right away. I'll do it whenever I can gather up the energy, and that is often not right when I finish the garment. So that is going to come up again later, but I just wanted to explain to you guys now why it is that I don't necessarily go back and make repairs immediately after I finished a garment. So these are all of the repairs and refashions that I did this time, and now let's move on to my finished knitted cardigan. I put this on the hanger for display purposes, but when I do put my sweaters away, I store them flat in a drawer, just so you know. This is another one of my summer sweaters that I finished in the month of October, so better late than never. This is some more of the LRA Eco Organic cotton that I bought earlier this year. I once again used the handy book of sweater patterns. This one is a set-in sleeve cardigan with a V-neck. I made the 36-inch chest. My gauge was 6 stitches per inch. The needles that I used were size 4 for the body and size 2 for the trims. And I did make some changes to the pattern on this one, so I did crop it a little bit. And then instead of knitting the sleeves flat and seaming them in, I picked up stitches and knit the sleeves in the round from the top down. And I also picked up extra stitches because I prefer my cardigan sleeves to be a little bit looser so it's easier to layer things over it. The trims here are a half twisted rib. And then this texture pattern is from the Hermione's Everyday Socks. It's just a really simple, easy to memorize pattern, but it gives a little bit of dimension so it's not just plain stockinette. And I also replaced the button band from the pattern with this vertical double knit button band. Now this is where I had my tragic flaw with this one. I did not pick up enough stitches for the button band, and so it does pull up here because it's too short for the sweater. However, if you've ever knit a double knit button band, then you will know what a big pain in the ass it is. And I just don't have it in me to go back and fix it. Like, even with time and distance, I just do not want to rip this out and do it again, because I'd have to completely remove the whole thing, pick up more stitches, and then redo it, which would take an eternity. So I'm just going to live with it the way that it is. I did originally intend for this to be dual purpose, where I could wear it buttoned up like a top, or I could wear it open like a cardigan. But because of the pulling of the button band here, I'm probably more likely just to wear it as a layer over things open so you don't notice it as much. But in the photos and clips that I took, you will see that I just wore it as a top. And I think an average person is not going to notice, even though it does bother me a little bit. I can't remember exactly how long it took me to make this, but I want to say it was about a month and a half, maybe 2 months. And although I do have other red tops and red cardigans in my wardrobe, I do think there's room for one more because this is my favorite color. I think it's really going to cheer me up in the cold, winter, dreary days. So I do think that I'm going to get a lot of use out of this, but only time will tell. Now let's chat a little bit about the project I decided on for the Precious Fabrics Challenge. I know I'm probably going to disappoint a lot of you because, judging on what people thought I should do, most people were divided between the Farm Rio inspired shirt or the bright plaid coat. But in the end, I decided that I should choose the project that I would actually get the most wear out of, and that's how I decided on the pinstripe suiting matching set. So let's go over the vest first. This is Butterick 6901. I've made it once before. The sizing I can't remember because I think I did adjust it quite a bit. I want to say it's like a 6 at the shoulders graded to an 8 at the chest, and then maybe up to a 10 around the waist. I did do quite a bit of work. I did a small bust adjustment. I moved the dart placement down, and I probably did some other things that I can't remember. This was all the first time around. And so this time all I had to do was just get out my pattern that I had already modified and just make up this version. This fabric is a wool rayon blend suiting that I got from Fabric Mart several years ago. And I do actually have enough fabric left that I can make a third piece, whether that's like a mini skirt or maybe a cropped blazer, but for now I think I only need 2 pieces in my wardrobe. This time I did make a change that I left off the ties from the back because I just found them kind of lumpy and they get in the way on my first version, and I'm really happy that I did that. The lining here is just an anti-static poly lining that I purchased myself from Minerva. Now, for the most part, I'm really happy about this vest. But I will say that I think I made a fatal flaw that I didn't discover until after I washed it. So the pattern actually calls for you to fully interface both fronts, which I did not do on my first version because it was a cotton canvas that was very sturdy. But on this little bit of a lighter weight suiting, I went ahead and did the interfacing. I used like a medium weight woven interfacing, and everything looked great until I washed and dried it. And then I think perhaps because the interfacing had not been pre-washed, because you can't pre-wash interfacing, I think the interfacing may have shrunk a little bit. And so there was all this wrinkling on the front, and I did try to iron it out, but there's just little pieces here where there's more fabric than interfacing, and it kind of has nowhere to go. So it's a little bit imperfect now, and so I'm really kind of disappointed by that, but there's nothing I can go back to do and fix it now as far as I know. Let me know if you have any solutions. So I guess if I ever made this vest again, even if the fabric was a little bit lighter, I would not use iron-on interfacing. Maybe I would use like a lightweight fabric interlining and pre-wash that fabric just to make sure everything is pre-shrunk. But yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed with how that came out, but I think like a normal person isn't really going to notice, but it does kind of bother me. I did try my best to match the stripes on this, which I don't know if I did the best job, but I did the best that I could. I put these little fake welt pockets on the bias just for a little bit of extra detail. And yeah, for the most part, I am really happy with this vest, and I've already worn it quite a few times actually. So I think it was a really good and sound addition to my wardrobe that's going to get a lot of wear. Before we go any further, if you're enjoying this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up. And let's take a quick time out to ask this question. How do you feel about matching sets? They've been so popular for so long now that I would imagine that probably they're on the downswing. So I think in a couple years, they're going to be considered out of style, and all of a sudden it won't be cool anymore to wear things that are too matchy-matchy. So I'm interested to hear what you think. My personal opinion is that I like the idea of matching sets probably more than I like the execution of them. Most of the time when I have a matching set, I don't wear them together. But I do like the option of being able to do it if I want to, but generally speaking, I do wear my matching sets as separates. So I guess I'm kind of in the middle. I don't mind them, but I also don't wear them together very often, so I don't think I'd be too heartbroken if they went out of style. But I would love to know what you think. Let me know in the comments. And before we get back to the video, I'll quickly share with you what I am wearing. This is the Alina Design Company Hampton jean jacket. Underneath, I am wearing my Vicky So's Esther dress, which is one of my favorites. I have on my Adidas Sambas, and I'm just carrying a vintage Coach bag today. All right, let's get back to the video. Now let's talk about the pants because this one was more of an adventure. So this pattern is the Grasser number 700. I thought I had purchased it, but I actually won it in a giveaway back in 2023, so I did not pay for it. The way that this kind of came back to bite me is that at the time in 2023, Grasser only comes in single size patterns, and you can also choose what height bracket that you're in, and so I chose the shortest one. But back in 2023, I was a different size than I am right now, and so I had the Russian size 40 on hand. But today I would have gotten the next size up. And so the Russian size 40 waist was only like, I think 24 inches, which I do not have a 24-inch waist. Even in 2023, I did not have a 24-inch waist, so I would have had to make it bigger then as well. But now I needed to make it bigger by 3.5 inches, which is quite a lot. So what I decided to do, since I knew I was going to make a muslin, is I went ahead and I slashed through both the front and the back pattern piece through the entire thing from the waist down to the hem. And on the front, I added 1 inch, and on the back, I added 3/4 of an inch. And so the 2 inches on the front and the 1.5 inches on the back meant that I added 3.5 inches to the total of the waist so that it would fit me. Now, having done this all the way down, I assumed that it might be a little bit too baggy from the hips down, but I also knew since I was making a muslin that I would be able to try it on, and I could always pinch out a little bit off the side seams if I thought it was too big, and that is what I ended up doing. After making the muslin, I went ahead and I tapered 1/2 inch on each side seam to nothing at the hip. So I didn't end up adding quite as much to the leg width, it was mostly just at the waist. The other alterations that I made after making the muslin is that I did add another 1/2 inch to the center back length because I was getting a little bit of a wedgie. And I also shortened the hem by 3 inches. Because although I did get the shortest height bracket, the shortest height they offer is still 5 feet tall and I'm 4'9", so I did have to shorten the legs 3 inches. So before I get into the sewing process, I thought I would share with you just a few more of the little details here. It has a hook and bar closure, and then it has a fly front zipper. It has this pleat here on the side, and then it does have a facing, which I turned the other way because I was worried I was not going to be able to match up the stripes. And I also just think it makes a nice little detail. This particular pant has a facing on both sides of the pocket, and then the pocket itself is made out of lining fabric. On the back, you have 2 darts, and then it's meant to have a real welt pocket, but I actually turned it into a fake welt pocket because I never ever use back pockets in my pants, and it's just so much easier and would save me some aggravation from having to do that step when I was never even going to use them. So I think that turned out reasonably well. I thought that the whole thing was lined, but actually it's not. The front pieces are actually interlined with lining fabric to just past the knee, and then there's no lining fabric on the back. And I thought that was kind of weird at first, but actually I kind of like it. It doesn't make them too hot, but it just makes them a little bit easier to slide on and off, and it's pretty comfortable to wear. This wool fabric is not itchy at all, but if it were, the interlining would provide a nice little shield to protect your skin. And the waistband is also bias bound here, and that looks really nice and clean. And then on the hems, I did do hand-stitched hems, which I may or may not have done the best job, but hopefully it's kind of invisible. Now, I have made one Grasser pattern before, and so I was kind of prepared for how much work this was going to be. The patterns are really detailed, and they have really nice finishes, but in my opinion, sometimes it's just a bit much for my taste. So I did go ahead and simplify some details, like making the fake welt pocket, and also the fly shield is supposed to be bound with bias tape and all of that, and I just didn't think that was necessary, so I skipped that part. The main change that I wish I would have simplified is this front pocket construction, because I understand having the facing for the part that's obviously visible. I don't have a problem with that, but the inside of the pocket here, in my opinion, is just a little bit of overkill. Like, I don't really see it being a necessity to have that faced. So I would probably just cut the inner part of the pocket out of lining fabric and just live with it. And that would make it a little bit simpler and quicker to construct as well. Now, in terms of my fit adjustments, I did go a little bit haywire on certain things, and some things I knew right away, and some things I didn't realize until after I finished them. But one of the things that I did wrong is that when I made my muslin, I didn't do the pocket construction at all. I just made a solid front and back and tried it on. And then it was like, oh, I need to start tapering at the hip line. But I didn't really account for the pocket shape being part of what I would need to modify. So long story short, I just trimmed off all these pocket pieces a little bit wrong. They weren't trued up with my new side seam. So when I was actually constructing the pants and putting this pocket together, it was really difficult and tricky to get all of the pocket pieces caught in the seam line because of the way that I had trimmed them. So if I were going to do this pattern over again, I would probably need to reprint this entire like pocket structure and then actually fit it to the pants the correct way. I can't really explain well what I did wrong, but it just didn't want to sew together into the side seam very neatly. I had to kind of fudge it a little bit, which I was able to do, but certainly if I were going to make these pants again, I would want to fix that. The other thing that I did wrong that I didn't really account for until the pants were already completely sewn, and then I realized, is that I tried to put in my wedge of fabric. Remember, I put 1 inch on the front and 3/4 of an inch on the back. When I was deciding on the location, I tried to just pick a space where there wasn't something in the way. So no pocket, no pleat, etc. But what I didn't account for is that this pleat here on the front is supposed to be centered on the pant. And the pant is supposed to have a crease line that you iron all the way down to the hem, and it's supposed to be right in the middle of your leg. However, because of where I added the extra fabric, my pleat is no longer in the center of my leg. So when I tried to iron that crease line in, it wasn't centering and it looked really weird, being a little bit off to the side. And that's when it occurred to me like, oh yeah, it's actually not in the center where it's supposed to be because I added that extra wedge of fabric. So if I were to make these pants over again, I would need to go back in and re-center the pleat so that it would be right in the middle of my body. Again, this is like a tiny little detail that most people are not going to notice, but it is something that I would try to fix if I were going to make another pair. Now, the last thing about this pants that I should have known, but I just wasn't thinking about it because it was fairly complex. There were so many steps that I just forgot about this. But basically, I have an issue with the waist, and it's one that I've encountered many times before. And I've talked about it before on this channel. Because my waist and hips are fairly straight, I struggle with fitted pants like this that don't have elastic in them with keeping them up on my waist. Because especially if I'm not wearing a belt, they want to just slide right down and I don't have enough hip to keep them up. But I do actually need the extra positive ease in the waistband because when I sit down, my waist spreads and then it fits properly. If I made the waistline tighter when I sit down, I wouldn't be able to breathe or like live my life comfortably. So what I should have done is that I should have put some elastic in the back waist here that took up the extra slack when I'm standing so that the pants would be fitted around my waist when I'm standing, but there would still be enough expansion when I sit down for me to be able to breathe. But like I said, I wasn't thinking about that, and so I didn't do it. And so this is one of the things that I know that I need to make this change, but I'm just not ready to do it right now. Like it took me so long to make the muslin and make all the changes and do all the construction that I'm tired of looking at these and I don't want to fix them right now. But unless I gain a significant amount of weight, it is something that I will need to go back in and do in order to wear these pants comfortably, because even with a belt, they still want to slide down. And I can definitely tell, and it doesn't look the best. So it is a change that I will go back and make eventually, but just not right this second. Other than that, I am really happy with the way that these pants look. I'm really proud of myself. Like it was a lot of work, but I feel like I did a pretty decent job. And I do think that I ended up with a pretty good fit, and I'm very, very happy with the entire set. Like I said in the timeout section, I'm really not that likely to wear the two pieces together very much, although I do have a professional event coming up next week that I am planning to wear the two as a set. But I know that I'm going to get individual wear out of each of those pieces because I only have one other pair of pleated trousers in my wardrobe, and I do wear those quite frequently. So I think I'm going to get a lot of use out of these, and I like that they're black, but there is a subtle pinstripe, and so it's a little bit different, adds a little bit of pattern, a little bit of texture, and I know that it's going to go with so many things in my closet. So those are all of my makes that I had to share with you this week. If you want to see more from me, I would really love it if you'd hit the subscribe button and come back and see me again next time.